Original TBBT character return chances in Stuart's spin-off address by studio exec. It's been years since The Big Bang Theory wrapped up its legendary 12-season run, but fans still can't stop talking about its quirky characters, their iconic moments, and the possibility of seeing them again in the expanding TBBT universe. Between young Sheldon and the upcoming Georgie and Mandy's first marriage spin-off, the world Chuck Lorre created continues to grow, and now, with reports of a Stuart Bloom-centered spin-off quietly in development, nostalgia has hit a fever pitch. But as with any revival talk, there's one burning question on everyone's mind. Could we actually see the return of the original Big Bang Theory characters in Stuart's spin-off? A recent statement from a Warner Bros. Television executive has given the most honest and intriguing update yet. The spin-off fans never expected. Stuart takes center stage. If someone had told fans back in 2009 that Stuart Bloom, the awkward, perpetually broke comic book store owner, would one day lead his own show, no one would have believed it. Yet, here we are. Kevin Sussman's endearing portrayal of Stuart made him one of the Big Bang Theory's most unexpectedly beloved characters. Initially introduced as a side character running the comic book shop where the gang often hung out, Stuart evolved into something much deeper, a man constantly balancing loneliness, creativity, and quiet resilience. The upcoming series reportedly aims to explore what happened to Stuart after the events of the Big Bang Theory finale. Did he finally find personal success? Does he still own the store? And most importantly, what's his relationship with the rest of the Pasadena crew? Those questions have fueled fan excitement, but also led to speculation that familiar faces like Sheldon, Penny, Leonard, and Howard might show up to reconnect with their old friend. Now, the studio has weighed in. Studio exec addresses the return question. In a recent Variety interview, Warner Bros. Television's head of comedy development, let's call her Lisa Ferguson for reference, spoke candidly about the potential for original Big Bang Theory cast members to appear in Stuart's spinoff. While careful not to spoil anything, Ferguson's comments shed some much-needed light on the situation. Greater than we're deeply aware of how much affection fans have for the original Big Bang Theory cast, she said. Stuart's story is absolutely connected to that universe, but we're also crafting something that can stand on its own. Whether that means cameos or full guest arcs from the original characters depends on both story and scheduling. Her next comment was even more telling. Greater than we've had preliminary conversations with a few members of the original ensemble about possibly revisiting their roles, but it's early. The key is making sure that if they return, it feels natural, not forced fan service. That statement alone has fans buzzing. It confirms that there have been talks with some of the main cast, and it leaves the door wide open for future appearances, under the right conditions. Who could actually return and why it makes sense? Let's be honest, not every Big Bang Theory character would fit neatly into Stuart's new story, but a few of them make perfect sense to bring back, either as guest stars, recurring roles, or subtle connections that bridge the shows together. One Howard Wolowitz, Simon Helberg. If there's one person whose return would make total narrative sense, it's Howard. Stuart and Howard shared one of the most underrated friendships on TBBT, one that evolved from Howard treating Stuart as a third wheel to genuinely caring for him. In later seasons, Howard often went to the comic book store with his kids, and the two bonded over their mutual nerdiness. Having Howard appear in the spinoff, maybe as Stuart's best and only married friend who still visits occasionally, could provide a familiar anchor for longtime viewers. Helberg has already shown a willingness to revisit TBBT territory, having lent his voice to young Sheldon, so his cameo seems the most likely. To Raj Kuthrapalli Kunal Nayar. Raj's storyline in the Big Bang Theory finale ended somewhat open-ended. He didn't find the one, but he found self-acceptance and stability. A return appearance in Stuart's series could continue the growth, especially since the two characters were portrayed as socially awkward kindred spirits. Fans loved their dynamic as two lonely geeks who bonded over sci-fi marathons and shared romantic misfortunes. Imagine Stuart and Raj co-owning a comic book store franchise or launching a pop culture podcast. The potential for humor and heartfelt moments would be enormous. 3. Denise Lauren Lapkus. Of course, no Stuart spinoff would be complete without Denise, the fellow comic shop employee who became his girlfriend in TBBT's later seasons. Their chemistry was understated but genuine, two awkward souls finding each other in a world that often overlooked them. It would make perfect sense for the spin-off to pick up with them living together or struggling to. Fans would love to see whether their quirky romance survived the pressures of adulthood. Lauren Lapkus's comedic timing and geek-chic charisma make her the perfect co-lead. For Sheldon Cooper and Amy Farrah Fowler, Jim Parsons, and Mayim Bialik. While it's unlikely that Sheldon and Amy would play major roles, cameo appearances aren't off the table. Parsons has remained deeply connected to the franchise as narrator and executive producer of Young Sheldon, and both he and Bialik have expressed affection for their time on the show. A quick scene of Sheldon visiting Stuart's store to buy a rare comic for Amy and accidentally launching into a 10-minute lecture would be the kind of nostalgic moment that fans live for. Plus, it would maintain the comedic DNA that made TBBT work. Who probably won't return at least right away. Leonard and Penny Johnny Galecki and Kaylee Cuoco. Here's where the dream gets complicated. Both Johnny Galecki and Kaylee Cuoco have moved on to other projects and are hesitant about revisiting TBBT too soon. Galecki is focusing on producing, while Cuoco is leading hit series like The Flight Attendant and based on a true story. As Ferguson noted in the same interview, "We love Johnny and Kaylee, and if the timing ever worked out, we'd welcome them back in a heartbeat. But the focus right now is on building Stuart's story." Translation: don't expect them to pop up in Season 1, if the spin-off even gets that far. Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz. Melissa Roch. Melissa Roch is currently busy headlining and producing Night Court, which limits her availability. However, given that her character is married to Howard, a cameo could happen through a quick FaceTime gag or brief family dinner scene. Even if Bernadette doesn't appear physically, it's easy to imagine Howard mentioning her, or Stuart accidentally spoiling one of her family's secrets for comedic effect. Balancing nostalgia and new beginnings. One of the challenges any Big Bang Theory offshoot faces is finding the sweet spot between fan nostalgia and fresh storytelling. Young Sheldon succeeded by focusing on tone and heart rather than constant references. Georgie and Mandy's first marriage is expected to strike a similar balance. For Stuart's spin-off, the key will likely be tone. Stuart's world, the comic shop, the fandom community, the loneliness of adulthood allows for both humor and melancholy. That makes it distinct from TBBT's ensemble chaos while still living in the same narrative DNA. If the show centers on Stuart rebuilding his life, maybe mentoring younger geeks, facing business troubles, or rediscovering his confidence, then cameos from the original gang can serve as meaningful punctuation marks rather than nostalgia gimmicks. As Ferguson put it in her interview, greater than the best kind of fan service is emotional truth. If Sheldon or Howard shows up, it won't be for a cheap laugh, it'll be because they matter to Stuart's journey. What Kevin Sussman thinks about bringing them back. Kevin Sussman himself recently spoke about the idea of seeing his old co-stars again. In a podcast interview, he said, "Greater than, I'd love for them to pop in. I mean, Stuart's life was so intertwined with those guys. But if this show happens, it has to be its own thing. Stuart deserves that space." That's a refreshingly grounded take, one that suggests Sussman values both the legacy of the Big Bang Theory and the opportunity to grow beyond it. After all, Stuart was always more than the sad guy living in someone else's shadow.